Good morning. So today we're going to talk a little bit about fixing or testing out motor problems. So let me break this down piece by piece. Motor inputs are all from here. Motor outputs are all right here. X, Y, Z, and A. And these wires then respectively go to their drivers, which is X, Y, Z, A. And then these drivers are then, so these particular cables run to these connections here. The left side connections here, if we're looking at it. It has two sets of connections here. There's the output wires, and then there are the power wires here. So output wires, power wires, and they run into this driver, which receive all of their input from the opposite side here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these wires connect directly into the breakout board, X, Y, Z, and A. So that's what we have going on, X, Y, Z, A, coming off of there onto each of these here, and then it's outputting to the motor. Now that we have that chain established, let's talk about how do we check or double check this chain of information. One of the simple ways to remove part of an issue or to determine whether or not something is an issue is by removing or swapping out some of the cabling. Now, we've already tried swapping out the motors. If you've already come this far into the series, you've already removed the motors in order to test to make sure that the motors themselves aren't faulty. If you find that the motors aren't faulty, we need to go into the breakout board. There's two ways that I typically do this. The first way is, of course, we choose the driver that is attached to the motor that's giving us issues. So let's say in this case it's the Z-axis here. I'm going to take this Z-axis. This is the output wire. We're going to check to see if this output wire is giving us problems. So the way that we manage that is we actually remove the green power portion of this off of the Z-axis and then plug in the one from the A-axis to that port. Then we attach the motor to the A-axis port. Once it's attached to the A-axis port, we can then attempt to run this motor by running the page up and page down for the Z-axis, because all of our input signals coming from the computer will still go to this particular axis, this particular Z-axis driver, and will then output here into the A port instead. So we plug it into the A port, we run. If we don't see the fault anymore, then it's this cable that's running from the Z-axis to the driver that's causing us the issue. So what we like to do is then pull apart each of these pins and examine each of the wire ends to make sure we're getting complete contact. If that isn't the case, then we're going to go ahead and return everything to the status quo. And we're going to then remove the cable here from the A-axis and replace the Z-axis wire with this wire. In doing so, we're testing to see if the driver has failed or if this cable has failed. So we swap these out and we leave the Z-axis hanging. And I do want to make sure that as we're doing this, the control box is in fact turned off. If the control box isn't turned off, you're going to end up with a little bit of a surprise that you don't want. So just make sure that you do that. Now that we have this connected here, we can then, now the A-axis, because this is a control wire and this is being directed by the computer, we're going to have to hit our up and down buttons, meaning that we want to also make sure our X, Y, and A motors have already been removed, and we're just working with the Z-axis motor here, because again, this is the Z-axis output, and we're using the A-axis input or directions. So we're going to go ahead and hit up and down to see if this is then going to give us that error. If that is the case, if this is giving us the error, then it could be one of two things. It could be the driver here. It could be, if it's still giving you the error with this plugged in, then it's likely the driver. If it isn't giving you this error, then it's this cable that's running from here to here. being the Z-axis control cable. So you'll have to check these contacts here, make sure that they were properly stripped and attached. Similarly down here at your Z-axis to make sure it was too also stripped and attached. In doing so, we have tested the entire system from front to back to ensure that this is in fact happening correctly. The other part that we do like to test, of course, is a visual test to see if there is a green light on each of these motor drivers. It's a really simple way to say, hey, it's not green, it's not working. We're going to make sure that those are all green. All right. So that being said, that is the motor sequence here, how it's built into the control box, and how we test out each part individually. If you can give this a test, run each of these, run each segment of this, and then of course return everything back to normal, we will be good to go. Let me know what the results are and we can fix your problem as soon as possible.